Today we're going to look at practice test 4, the Math No Calculator section, only heart of algebra questions, and there are 8 of them. Number 1. Which of the following expressions is equal to 0 for some value of x? These brackets surrounding x minus 1, or x plus 1, or 1 minus x, or x minus 1 are called absolute value brackets, and they measure the distance from 0. So if I'm going to set all of these equations equal to 0, to solve them, I'm going to add 1 and subtract 1 from each side. On the right, I'll do the same, and you can see that for b, c, and d, I have the absolute value of something is equal to a negative number, which is impossible. That's why a is the best choice. Number 2, f of x is equal to 3/2 times x plus b. In the function above, b is a constant. If f of 6 is equal to 7, what is the value of f of negative 2? Well, if I want to plug in f of 6 is equal to 7, the 6 goes here for x, and the 7 goes where y would be, or in this case, f of x. And my equation looks like this. 7 is equal to 3/2 times 6 plus b. I try to avoid 6's and b's in such close proximity, but what are you going to do? To solve this, I can multiply out to get 18 over 2, which simplifies to 9. So I'll just erase that and put a 9. Then I subtract 9 from both sides, and I get negative 2 is equal to b. So let's move this over here. And now I know that f of negative 2 I can plug in here for x, and b I can plug in a negative 2. So I get f of x is equal to 3/2 times negative 2 minus 2. And if I multiply 3 times negative 2, I get negative 6 over 2 minus 2. And what is negative 6 over 2? That's just going to be a negative 3. And if I simplify this, my final answer is negative 5. Number 3, x divided by y is equal to 6. 4 times the quantity y plus 1 is equal to x. If xy is the solution to the system of equations above, what is the value of y? So I know that in the end I want to solve for y, and I'm going to use substitution. I'm going to plug in part of one equation into the other to get rid of one of the variables. So if I plug in for y, I'm going to get rid of y and not solve it. So instead I want to plug in for x, which means I'm going to solve for x. So I'll take this top equation and I'll multiply both sides by y. On the left they cancel out, and I'm left with x is equal to 6y. Which is great because I can take x in the second equation and replace this with 6y. So then I'm solving the equation 4 times the quantity y plus 1 is equal to 6y. I start off by distributing. I get 4y plus 4 is equal to 6y. And if I subtract 4y from both sides, I get 4 is equal to 2y. And when I divide both sides by 2, 2 is equal to y. While preparing to run a marathon, Amelia created a training schedule in which the distance of her longest run every week increased by a constant amount. If Amelia's training schedule requires that her longest run in week 4 is a distance of 8 miles, and her longest run in week 16 is a distance of 26 miles, which of the following best describes how the distance Amelia runs changes between week 4 and week 16 of her training schedule? So we can think of these distances in weeks as coordinates. In week 4, for example, we had a distance of 8 miles, whereas in week 16, we have a distance of 26 miles. We can use the change of slope formula to figure out the average rate of change. So we take y2, which is 26, and we subtract 8, and we divide that by 16 minus 4. We get 18 over 12. And if we divide both of these by 6, which is the largest number that goes into both, we get 3 over 2. If we look at our answer choices, we have 1/2, we have 2, we have 2 every 3, and we have 1.5 each week. That's the best choice here. 3/2 is 1.5. Number 8. Which of the following equations represents a line that is parallel to the line with equation y is equal to negative 3x plus 4? Well, what is the slope for this line y is equal to negative 3x plus 4? The slope is equal to negative 3. And because another line is parallel, that means it shares the same slope of negative 3. The answer choices are written in standard form, which can be a little bit more difficult to determine slope. There's some more steps required. But we know that our x coefficient will have to be 3 times our y coefficient to get a slope of 3. That can rule out choices C and D. We're left with A and B because 6 is 2 times 3 and 3 is 1 times 3. One of these will have a slope of positive 3 and one will have a slope of negative 3. Let's find them. If we start with 3x minus y is equal to 7, we can subtract 3x from both sides. This cancels out. We have negative y is equal to, and let's write it in traditional order, negative 3x plus 7. To divide out a negative 1, I am just taking the inverse of each sign. So y is equal to a positive 3x minus 7. Close, I have a slope of 3, but not negative 3. If I start with 6x plus 2y is equal to 15, I can subtract 6x from both sides. Cancels out on the left. I have 2y is equal to negative 6x plus 15. And I divide all 3 parts by 2. And I get y is equal to negative 3x plus 7.5. There's the slope I wanted. That's the correct answer. Number 12. Ken and Paul each ordered a sandwich at a restaurant. The price of Ken's sandwich was X dollars, and the price of Paul's sandwich was $1 more than the price of Ken's sandwich. If Ken and Paul split the cost of the sandwiches evenly and each paid a 20% tip, which of the following expressions represent the amount in dollars each of them paid? And assume there is no sales tax. So let's break this down. The price of Ken's sandwich was X dollars. I'm going to add to that the price of Paul's sandwich, which was $1 more than Ken's. So if Ken's was X, we add 1 to get X plus 1. And they're going to pay a 20% tip. So there's the 1.2, because the 1 represents the original cost of their sandwiches, and the 0.2 is an additional 20%. And we know also that they're going to split this evenly. So the entire thing divided by 2. So the first thing I can do is combine like terms, and this x plus x can be replaced with simply a 2x. Then I'm going to distribute the 1.2, and I get 2.4x plus 1.2 divided by 2. Notice choice D is meant to trick you if you forgot to split the total. So we divide each of these separately by 2, and 2.4x becomes 1.2x, and 1.2 becomes 0.6. Choice C. Number 19. Negative 3x plus 4y is equal to 20. 6x plus 3y is equal to 15. If xy is the solution for the system of equations above, what is the value of x? You might notice if we look at the coefficients, there are no 1s, so substitution is not going to be the easiest trick, but the x coefficients, negative 3 is a factor of 6. If I just double this top equation, I'll be able to add straight down and cancel out my x terms. So let's do that. 2 multiplied by this entire thing. That's my new equation. If I add all 3 columns straight down, that will effectively cancel out the x term, which is what I was looking for. I get 11y is equal to 55, and if I divide both sides by 11, I get y is equal to 5. But they wanted the value of x. So I can plug that into either one of my original equations. Let's say I choose this second one, and I'm going to write it as 6x plus 3 times 5 instead of y is equal to 15. When I multiply this out, I get 3x plus 15 is equal to 15. I think you can see where this is going. When we subtract 15 from both sides, we get 6x is equal to 0. And when we divide both sides by 6, we're going to get x is equal to 0. Number 20. The mesosphere is the layer of Earth's atmosphere between 50 kilometers and 85 kilometers above Earth's surface. At a distance of 50 kilometers from Earth's surface, the temperature in the mesosphere is -5 degrees Celsius, and at a distance of 80 kilometers from Earth's surface, the temperature in the mesosphere is -80 degrees Celsius. For every additional 10 kilometers from Earth's surface, the temperature in the mesosphere decreases by k degrees Celsius, where k is a constant. What is the value of k? If I treat these distances and temperatures like coordinates, I can use the slope formula to figure out the rate of change. So I'm going to take y2 minus y1, which is -80 minus a -5. I'm going to divide that by x2 minus x1, which is 80 minus 50. The trick here is that this tells me the average rate of change for every 1 additional kilometer. But in the question they told us they want the change for every 10 additional kilometers. So I'm going to again multiply this by 10. This gives me -750 divided by 30. I can use the division trick to get rid of these zeros. And I get -25. Let's go back to the wording of the problem though. They say, for every additional 10 kilometers from Earth's surface, the temperature in the mesosphere decreases by k degrees Celsius, where k is a constant. How much does it decrease by? Well, with a value of -25, it decreases by 25. So if you did not write your answer as a positive value, you would have gotten that one wrong.